Holy shit. Do you want to feel uncomfortable? Because I have the thing for you. You see, the United States just lost to Panama. You might not have known that if you hadn't been watching this channel, then congratulations. You've been living in a world of happiness and rainbows and ponies and a bunch of other shit that sounds fantastic. But the United States lost to Panama, which means there is a 5-alarm fire going on in the U.S. Federation. Now, the one thing that's been consistent is that the journalists around U.S. soccer following the U.S. national team, they have not necessarily been the most aggressive in terms of putting Greg Berhalter on the spot. I mean, I have to imagine that if another coach in the United States was subjected to blackmail during something as large as the World Cup in the way that Greg Berhalter was by the Reina family, and then had to resign until an investigation was completed, and then they rehired him after forming kind of a phony coaching, what only feels like to me is a phony coaching search in the first place, right, that this guy would be perpetually in the hot seat. But you'd be surprised. The U.S. national team coach, Greg Berhalter, is not somebody that has been in the hot seat a lot. That is starting to change, right? You start to lose against Panama, and as they're going to point out in the video we're about to watch, the United States has made the semifinals of Copa America 2 of the last 3 times it's played in the tournament. The United States actually does pretty well in Copa America when it's invited to participate as well as other CONCACAF nations. Right, the last time the U.S. played in Copa America, it made the semifinals and lost to Argentina and Lionel Messi, who ended up losing the final in 2016 on penalties to Chile. It was actually a very good tournament for the U.S., and that team was, at least according to on paper stuff, way less talented. So Greg Berhalter losing to Panama, you would expect maybe some tough questions. And unusually, they finally came. And Greg Berhalter's answer, and just the incredible lack of comfort that goes on in this question shows you how little he's been asked these types of questions before. If you're coaching another national team, whether it be Mexico or England or whatever, you get these sorts of questions all the time. And to be perfectly honest, it is not that hard to deal with this sort of question, right? You deflect it pretty comfortably. You just go, hey, I'll run you through how I would answer this question after it. But I'm just going to go ahead and play this. My friend Tactical Manager it tweeted this out, so I'm just going to go ahead and join this. We'll play this from the top because it is electric television. All right, here we go.
Greg, Lawrence Dockery, World Soccer Talk.
What's happening? What do we want to happen
here?
All right.
First of all, Greg seems to know what's coming, right? They announced who this guy is from World Soccer Talk that's going to ask the question, and Greg seems very aware of question that is about to be asked, right? Like, right, what do we think is happening here? That's such a weird little, I don't know, like, does that not make you a little uncomfortable in the first place, that he's clearly hyper aware? Like, I don't know if they've had run-ins in the past, right, in actual interviews, so I don't want to say that he's hyper aware of what's kind of being written about him and about his team, but he's definitely aware that this guy from World Soccer Talk is perhaps not his biggest fan, which, look, if you're coaching a national team, there's going to be people like this guy. There's going to be people like me that are sitting there calling for your job every 5 seconds, right? That's just the way that coaching a national team works. Now, especially when you get the job from your older brother and you do what generally can be acknowledged as a pretty poor job competing against teams outside of your continent with what many people consider the U.S. golden generation. I don't want to get too carried away, and I'm running out of oxygen, so let's continue.
Prior to this Copa America, the U.S. had been to the Copa America 2 of the last 3 times they have been to the semifinals. If it happens where you fail to get out of the group on home soil, could and should your job be on the line against Uruguay?
First of all, I just want to pause just to kind of acknowledge and appreciate the face that Greg Berhalter is making in this particular situation. Greg Berhalter is, if you could try to manifest the use of eye lasers in a particular moment, I feel like he's really trying to channel that. I don't know exactly what he looks like. I imagine right now, if I was looking at Greg Berhalter's shit list, on top of it would be the Reina family, and then second would be this guy, right? This is the opposite. Did we all watch Ted Lasso? How do you handle these reporters that don't like you, right? What's the best way to handle it? Not wishing them death, not trying to transfer the fury of 1,000 years of your ancestors in one glare, right? Like, that's not the way that you try to handle this. I realize that human emotion and human nature takes over, perhaps, in this situation, but with the amount of press training and the amount of press awareness, and my God, you very well knew what question was coming. If you know that question's on the docket, You've got to be ready for it, and you can't be this surprised and this mad. And I want to be honest, shout out to the journalist. It takes some guts. It really, really does in a press conference setting to look the person whose job you are questioning in the eye and be like, a lot of people are saying that if you don't get out of the group, you shouldn't keep your job. What do you think, Buster? Like that, it takes some guts. And this guy stuck the landing, right? And he's asking a question that I think the whole point of a press conference in the first place, he's asking a question that I think we deserve an answer to. And here's your answer. Let's go.
That's not, I have a hard time understanding the question. I think you mean if we don't qualify for the next round, should my job be in the line? Yeah.
Gregathy. It's not a hard question to understand. That was a very easy question to understand. He actually cited his sources on that question, which maybe he didn't necessarily need to do. He could have exercised more brevity in the question he was asking itself, right? But he cites it. He goes, "Hey, look, we made the semifinals 2 of the last 3 times at Copa America. We got a history of success here. If it so happens," I think he says literally, "if it so happens that we don't get out of the group, do you think your job should be on the line?" That's a very straightforward question, which means Greg is floundering here. He's reaching, but here we go.
That's not for me to determine. Doug, there you go. I'll call on you.
I couldn't tell you, man. I couldn't tell you. Like from pretending that he doesn't understand the question or insinuating that the question was somehow unclear to just very quickly the final answer he gets to after the 40 seconds of it being insanely uncomfortable isn't the worst answer in the world, right? It is not for him to determine. But just his ability to handle the pressure of that question is almost a little concerning. Not almost. It is concerning. The vibe, when you see a ship sinking, I feel like we've all watched sports long enough to know what this looks like. Right? When things are starting to go rotten, when doubts are starting to creep in, when this sort of inevitable feeling that a manager is going to get fired at some point in the near future unless there's some sort of miraculous turnaround, and we're just on this slide towards it. I think Greg sees the writing on the wall. He might have even already been having conversations with people behind the scenes about how much the writing is on the wall, right? He is clearly, as he indicated at the beginning of this press conference, he is clearly aware of what the media and everybody is saying about what he's doing and how his job's going. And it's getting awkward. It's getting awkward. It's getting all hot and uncomfortable in the United States camp right now and right before that match coming up against Uruguay. But I do not blame this journalist for asking this question at all. I think it's an entirely fair question. And the way to answer it is almost that Ted Lasso direction. Like, look, we're trying to do everything we can to win. We know what the expectation is. But if we are unable to reach that expectation, I think I'm able to get this team pointed in the right direction. But it's not my decision to make. I just hope that I'm able to keep trying to build on to what we've already accomplished. Now, if I was Greg Berhalter, that would be the answer I'd try to give. I'd like to hope that I am composed enough in a public realm of debate such as this that I would be able to deliver that sort of answer. But what is amazing to me is that I can, having not planned it before, provide a better answer to that question than Greg Berhalter could, even though he seemed to know it was coming. And if you listen to the next question that's being asked, it's just a very similar question, too. Listen.
If you do need a win in that.
The guy starts, if you do need a win. Greg, these questions are not going to go away for the next couple of days. You got to figure out how to answer them without looking like somebody that's already been told if they lose this game, they're going to get fired. Because that's what you look like right now. You look like somebody that's been told that if you lose this game, you're going to get fired. You look like somebody that believes that if you don't win this game, you're out of a job, right? And you're looking like the one thing Greg had, it was never tactics. It was never resume, right? For those that were unaware of how a guy he got hired in the first place, it was vibe. It was this community building vibe that apparently he has, right? Well, that seems to be gone too. And if he doesn't have that, there's not a lot left going for Greg Berhalter in this freaking situation.